it happens all the time where the slower moving vehicle is in the dip and people fly over the dip and then they jump into the left lane and it's like Wild West out there. So we are spending millions of dollars to create this situation that's going to be just as bad. Thank you very much.
This location was fixed. The dips at this location were fixed probably 20 years ago. So they're not, you can see from you have plenty of sight distance from along this portion of the southbound direction corridor through this location. So that shouldn't be an issue.
Very good. I'll drive it tomorrow. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Malik. The next question is from Tom Farrell. Go ahead, Tom. You can unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you for holding this meeting. I guess I have a question and a comment. A question is, could you please clarify the signals that are being added? When I looked at this previously, I did not see signals at the 2 U-turn points. So are those signals actually stopping traffic on Route 29?
Yes. They'll be in one direction. You're not going to, it's not like a regular intersection where and that's one of the advantages to this type of intersection improvement. You're only stopping the traffic in the one direction that you're, where you're making a U-turn. So it's like if you're making the U-turn at the south end, it's only going to stop the traffic traveling northbound so that U-turn can be made at a stop light condition. So you don't have to look for a gap in traffic. When the queue gets up to a certain amount, that signal will trip and that U-turn can take place and the northbound stop. Same way with the southbound. When the queue builds up at that northbound U-turn location, it'll stop the southbound traffic and that U-turn can take place.
So I guess I understand what you're saying. I'm very frustrated about this proposal. Being someone who lives off of Watts Passage that feeds into Burnley Station, it's my understanding shortly before I moved in about 13 years ago, there was a huge fight to get the light in place here to allow traffic off of Burnley Station to be able to turn southbound. And this proposal takes what had been a significant improvement for the people who live in this local area to be able to access southbound 29 and turns around and makes a more difficult situation for both us and the folks coming from Frays Mill. So all the benefit really, to me, seems to fall in the direction of 29 and not for the people who live local here. And I guess I'm curious, what other, you indicated in your remarks that there aren't a lot of options. You know, one thing I've been surprised that there has not been more of an emphasis on is putting the lights in advance of the stoplight to let people know that the light was changing, to help get their attention so they don't blow through it. Can you talk to what other options were actually considered here?
Yeah, let me go pull up the report and see. Generally, we look at several of the alternative intersection concepts, some of the improvements that you're talking about, rumble strips, advanced flashing lights, and we've had some of those installations across the district, and they initially they initially work, but they have a short life expectancy, and people stop paying attention to those improvements, and they basically lose their effectiveness. So in the short term, we may look at something like that, because even if this is selected for funding, it's going to be probably 5 to 7 years before it would be built. So it's not something that's going to come out there next year. But let me look real quick here and see from the study the different options we considered previously. Sorry, it's taking me a second here.
If people would like to ask a question, you can use the raise your hand feature on the webinar. If you're on the phone, you can press *9 and that will raise your hand. And there are some questions in the chat feature, which I will get to. We just have quite a few people who
Okay.
raised their hand.
We looked at a bow tie type of intersection, which is it's a four-way intersection, but it doesn't allow the left turns at the intersection. It would have roundabouts on both the side streets, and you would make a right-hand turn and then make a U-turn and then go through the intersection. It's one of those options, a median U-turn, which is similar to an R-cut. It does allow the through movements to occur, but it doesn't allow any of the left turn movements to occur. So all the left turns from the main line and from the side street would occur at the U-turn locations. There's a partial displaced left turn, which that's similar to a median U-turn. It's just one side. And then the restricted R-cut was the other intersection type that we looked at. So those were the ones that we considered for this location. And the R-cut provided the best level of service and reduction in safety. I mean, improvement in safety, rather, of all the concepts that we looked at. One of the things about the R-cut is generally at a traditional intersection, you've got upwards of 48 conflict points, and the R-cut reduces that number down to 20, which is significantly less. And that's why you would see a reduction in the number of crashes. It also reduces the number of serious and injury crashes. And some of the studies from across the country have shown those numbers to be upwards of 70 to 80% reduction.
Hey,
Okay,
Chuck.
thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I was just saying thank you.
Oh, thanks. Chuck, can you review, some people missed how many crashes are at this intersection?
Yeah. Okay, between 2014 and 2019, the end of 2019, there's been 39 crashes. 12 of them were injury crashes, and 27 of them were property damage only. Of those, let's see, 24 of the crashes were rear ends, and no, 24, let me see, total 32 were rear ends, and 4 were angle crashes.
Thanks. The next question is from Mike Q. Mike, if you could unmute yourself and then go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to first thank Ann Malik and Tom Farrell for their great questions and helping all of us understand what these proposed changes are. And thank you, Chuck, for inviting us to this meeting. I want to ask a very basic question about the general premise behind your logic. It seems to me that what the suggestion being proposed is to create 3 lights instead of 1, assuming that that will make it safer. But it seems to me that from a very, very high level, looking at that idea, that we have 3 possible areas where crashes will occur, as well as some confusion from drivers, and especially drivers who aren't familiar with the area. You have some possible confusion resulting from what am I supposed to do here? And I want to add that most cars, as they travel through this intersection, I live there, I live off Frays Mill. So like Tom, I'm very familiar with what happens here, and I've been here for 12 years. It's about an average of 65 miles per hour. So this is a highway speed, which is why I'm so concerned about having more lights, in particular because there are a lot of bikers that use this route, Burnley Station and Frays Mill, and I just cannot see the safety factor for them. In addition, Chuck, one more question I have about this, in addition to the 3 lights versus 1, is as a car is traveling and then moving on to, say you're going north on 29 because you turned right on Burnley Station, they're trying to get into that left lane to make a U-turn. During times of high volume, there are going to be cars that line up, and there is a strong potential that some cars will be left sitting on Route 29 because they can't fit into that extra lane, which isn't going to be that long. And so there's tremendous danger for more rear end crashes as cars that are speeding going 60 miles an hour suddenly, as they come up over the hill, encounter a car that is in the left lane of Route 29, not the turnoff lane, but the other one. So those are among my concerns, overarching concern, as Anne expressed as well, is the safety of this plan. And so I'd like to hear your responses on those questions.
Yeah, you asked several questions. I'll try to answer them. The 3 signals, they don't necessarily work like regular signals. They stop the traffic, but for most, like a traditional signal like is out there now, it stops the traffic in all 4 directions during certain times. And then it allows certain movements to go, and then it'll stop the traffic again, and then allow other movements to go and stop the traffic, and then allow other movements to go. That takes a lot of time. So what this does is, by taking out some of those movements, you're reducing an 8-phase signal, which is what you need to provide all these other movements to occur at a conventional signal. You can reduce that down to 2 phases. Like the left turn, the main line will stop and it'll allow the left turns and the right turns to go simultaneously from the main line, and the right turns from the side street. So it'll allow you to get over into that left lane to actually get into the turn lane. So it reduces the amount of time that light has to be green to allow for those movements to occur and the traffic to clear that movement. So instead of taking this large amount of time, it reduces that significantly. So you don't have to stop the main line as long, and it still provides all the time for the side streets to actually make the movements that they need to make. It does, because you're having to make a right and then make a U-turn and then go make another right or go through south, your time is maybe a little bit more, but generally from what we've seen in the analysis, it's very small difference in the amount of time it takes from what you're seeing now to what you'd have to do to make the right and the U-turn to get back. From a safety standpoint, like I said, by spreading out those intersections, you're spreading out those conflicts where people are conflicting with other vehicles. So you're not having as many of those situations, and you're reducing that amount of time. So you're not having to stop the main line for as long, which is going to reduce the potential for those rear end crashes, which is a significant number of the crashes that we're seeing out there today. Regarding the bike crossing, yeah, bikes up and down 29 is is not something that you would typically see, but crossing from Frays Mill to Burnley Station or Burnley Station to Frays Mill, we have included, and you can't see it clearly on here. Basically, you can cross from when the right turns and the left turns go at the main intersection. You can cross from the side street to the median. And then that median splitter island that's between the left turn bays, there's a gap in it. So you can go from one side of it to the other side. And then when the other side signal on the southbound side goes, you'll be able to be in front and you can cross right over. So you're basically, bicyclists would be able to make a two-stage crossing of this intersection right at the main intersection, and they wouldn't have to make the right, make the U-turn and come back. So that's how they would make that maneuver, because that came up at the original meeting, and that was one of the things that we were able to work with L&D on in providing that accommodation so that that movement can still take place. I think I've answered most of your questions that you would ask. Does that answer your questions?
To some degree. I'm still waiting, Chuck, to hear from you on the cars that are left stranded in 29, as there's not enough space to pull off onto the turn lane.
We sized those turn lanes to accommodate the vehicles that would be making that U-turn in the modeling. So that's why it's the length that's all the length that needed to be based on those right turns. When we get into the design, we'll do some additional analysis, and if we need to make the turn lane a little bit longer because the volumes are greater, then we can do that as part of the design. But that would be a design refinement during that process if the project is selected for funding.
Okay.
So we wouldn't strand somebody out there in that left turn lane, waiting to get in the left turn lane.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. The next question is from Mike Hugh.
Yes, ma'am. I've been using this intersection since 1975 in various problem areas, and it certainly has escalated as far as risk factors go, and particularly it was greatly improved by the light. That limited sight lowering took place was good, but they should have went another 3 feet at that time, but that's water over the dam, so to speak. But the current layout with the U-turns, are they fresh created U-turns, or are they using existing turnarounds? It has to be carefully done because Ann's concerned about long vehicle turns and swinging out and back in again. If there's an element of time and distance associated with that, that's going to complicate traffic flow in general, even with lights. And secondly, the incidents of accidents happening, since I see that intersection a lot, both north and south, and turns in both directions, east and west, I have really concerned in the last little while, last couple of years, the red light runners that have greatly complicated and brought injury. Most of these 39 incidents, I would say, are aggravated by the fact of red light runners, one way or the other. And now you've got the possibility on the turnarounds, plus the ones that are going to be in the middle of this three-component intersection now, other opportunities for people just to blow on through. And that is a worry to me in all this.
Yeah, I understand your concerns. And regarding the larger vehicles, we've designed the turnarounds so that they will accommodate even large tractor trailers. So they are taken into account as part of this design. I understand that that is an issue, and that's an issue across the board. It's just this intersection, we're seeing significant numbers of crashes throughout the district. And like I said, this location is ranked number 12 out of all the intersections in the district, including like Hydraulic Road and if you go up north, Vent Hill and some of these other ones that see 40 and 50, or 50 and 60. This is one of the ones that we want to try to see if we can do something to fix, because it's going to just continue to get worse if we don't do something to try to address the situation.
What makes this particular crossing more red light running prone than maybe Boulder or down at, there's other opportunities south, but it's.
I don't know why this one would be more prone to that type of situation than other ones. Like I said, most of the accidents that we're seeing here, we had 4 angle crashes, which are basically people running the light hitting somebody, or most of the crashes are rear end crashes. I forget the number I said, 29 or something like that.
It was high.
32 of the crashes are rear end crashes. And
it's going to
like
be,
I said, is part of that is the part of it is because we're having to give so much time to stop the main line to allow the side streets and the left turning movements to occur, that the queues get long. And the longer the queues get, like Ann said before, the further you go away from this intersection, you could start getting into some areas where you do have some rolling topography, and it could be problematic. And you start to have more rear end collisions. With this configuration, you're shortening the time that those people on the main line have to stop. And so you're not going to get as much of that violation, and they're not going to have to stop as long. So the chances of the queues getting back is going to be less, and you're going to see a reduction in the number of rear end crashes as a result of that.
in this 5 to 7 year planning, before planning to build and such, are we going to have any advance notification lights to help maybe certainly bring down some of the red light runners? Maybe.
We'll have to look at that. We do systemic improvements, or the funding we have for those type of safety improvements is limited to how much we get per year across the district, and it's generally we've been utilizing it for rumble strips and striping and some of these other things to more improve it, because that is shown to be have a larger return on the investment. We can look at this in the interim to look at something that we could do here. Perhaps rumble strips and flashing lights. I mean, I know we had those up at Vent Hill for many years, and it's still one of the top crash locations in the district, even with the improvements we've made up there recently. So it's just that they may work initially, but then they fall by the wayside later because people start to ignore the lights and the rumble strips. So we can look at some of that.
Even an acceleration lane going north off of Burnley, or even south off of Yancey, that is sorely needed. You come in virtually to a blind cut through. You got light there, granted, but you have no opportunity, I guess, when traffic flow limits are allowed to go north or south without having to fully wait for the light change, and you're pitching yourself out into the intersection. And just investment of some acceleration lanes would be a benefit to that in the interim. Even a longer left-hand turn, or a wider one for that matter. You sit in the left-hand turn to go on the Burnley, and you have skimpy space, and you're a sitting duck for traffic going south blowing by you in that intersection. So there's local things that would be certainly an investment of monies, but without terminal or light equipment to make happen. But you can improve the efficiency of the intersection, I think. Just that great improvements. Thank you.
Yeah, most
Thank
of
you,
those,
Mike.
a lot of those type of improvements would require a project, and that's what this project is. So there's very limited things we can do outside of the normal a project application like this to make those type of improvements of any significant scale. So, but thanks for your comments.
Sure.
We have several people in the queue, so I just want to move on to the next one. Mark Beecham, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm not sure my question is really going to expand on what Mike has already said, but I'm going to maybe ask it a slightly different way. Chuck, Lucinda, thanks for giving me the time to chat with you guys and hear and listen to the proposal. Like the last gentleman, I think his name was Mike, I've been a home and property owner on Burnley Station Road since the 90s. The removal of the hill was a tremendous safety enhancement to our intersection. The signal furthered that. While I don't have any data to support it, my gut tells me the severity and the nature of the accidents dramatically changed when the hill was removed and the light was put in place. In fact, you even mentioned the number of rear end collisions. And I would argue, and really my question is about your modeling, and if you could talk a little bit about your modeling and also the shortened times. My question is this. I would believe, my gut tells me, and looking at the heat map, the statistical data that you have in the briefing that's attached on the planning site, it appears that 32 of the 39, or the briefing has 28 of the 32 are rear end collisions, and those are collisions probably that occur during peak travel times on either the north or southbound traffic as the local area is transiting to and from Charlottesville for employment during the day. What I don't understand is, given the nature of the preponderance of accidents, I don't understand how your modeling could show that an R-cut would improve, because we would end up just moving the potential place of accidents from one location to another. Because ultimately, you're going to have to stop that southbound traffic in the mornings for people turning left and turning right from the neighboring roads to allow that traffic to merge in and go southbound into Charlottesville in the morning. Likewise, I suspect the data shows the northbound traffic is probably not as great in the afternoon. The number of rear end collisions probably are not quite as great as they are maybe in the mornings. So anyway, my question is about your modeling. Did the physical locations of the accidents themselves factor into the modeling of the R-cut? And if so, how will the movement of the light and the shortening of the timelines decrease those number of rear end collisions?
To a certain extent, yes. Most of the crashes are within 200 feet of the intersection. So where we're putting the turnarounds is far greater than that. When we do an analysis, we typically look at the crashes within a 300 foot of the intersection. So beyond that, those aren't even included in the data that we're looking at. So there could be more crashes beyond that we're not even including in those directions that are related to the signal because of the queuing of the traffic. But by moving these locations and shortening the times, you're not going to have the queues as long as what they typically are out there today. And they won't be, they definitely won't be as long, and they'll clear quicker. So there'll be less potential for those rear end type of crashes with the long queues. I hope that addresses your question.
It doesn't, Chuck, because even you cite the 200-foot. The statistical data that you're using is within 200 feet of the intersection. Are we not actually creating at that U-turn location on the north and southbound lanes? Aren't we then creating another intersection for that north and southbound traffic during peak times to have those same rear end collisions?
Yes. However, the time that those are going to be green and stop the northbound traffic is going to be significantly less, because you're only having to do provide the enough green time for that U-turn to occur.
Is that based on
And then
is that based on statistical data from counting the cars in the neighborhoods that are turning, or is that just based on statistical data across the nation? Because I would challenge you to I would challenge.
That's based on actual the turning movement volumes that are that we have for this intersection. We took the turning movements at this intersection, so we used the data that is available for this intersection, and we basically analyzed this improvement based on that data. And then we grew that data based on historic trends to a future year and analyzed it. And that's what we used for the design of this, for the evaluation and the design of this intersection.
Okay, that's great news. Thanks, Chuck. That's all I have. And again, I want to thank VDOT and the planning community, all the efforts you've taken through the years to improve the safety at the intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
So we have less than 15 minutes left, and quite a few more people want to ask questions. I want to make sure that we get to everybody's questions. So I'm going to ask that you ask one question, and then Chuck will answer it, and then we'll move to the next person, and you can get back in the queue if you have follow-up questions. So the next question is from Chris Robertson. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. My question is that it's my understanding that there are other R-cut intersections that are being proposed between Charlottesville and Burnley Station Road. And if that is true, are the other intersections with that R-cut proposal equally, are they also having significant amounts of accidents?
There's one proposed as part of a new development plan for the North Point development. They're building a residential subdivision off of 29 between Airport Road and Lewis and Clark on the east side of 29. And as part of that development, they're building a new access point. That access point is going to be an R-cut. It's initially going to be unsignalized with the U-turns occurring at Lewis and Clark. And then I think there's a U-turn bay now or turn lane down at Airport Acres that they were proposing to improve for that the northbound U-turn. It's opposite, the road that goes up to Hall's Auto Body. I can't remember the name of the road. But that's where the connection is going to be. The other one is, as a part of that development, they're looking at doing a similar type of intersection at Lewis and Clark. And then at just south of the Sheets at 606 or 607 in Greene County, there's a connector road that's being designed right now. And as part of that, they're doing a partial R-cut at that location, where it's going to tie into 29, just south of 607.
Thank you, Chuck. The next question is from Stuart Gardner.
Hi, this is Stuart Gardner. I think this is what's known as the Michigan left. I lived in Michigan outside Detroit for a number of years, and coming from the South, I'd never seen this before and was certainly skeptical. But after a couple of years, by the time I left Michigan, it was actually quite an efficient method to get traffic moving. I don't know, is this what's called a Michigan left?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it comes in several different configurations. Some places they call it a J-turn. We have what's called a Michigan U-turn, which you at your main intersection, you can configure the main intersection different ways. And that's what I was saying when we looked at different options. Some of those were those type of options. But generally, the left turns at either on the main road or the side streets occur at these U-turn locations.
Yeah. So just from my experience, I found it to be at first a little bit odd, but then quite efficient. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. The
Thank
next
you.
question is from C. Pals.
Yeah, this is Carl Pales, and my question has been pretty much answered by the previous, was taken care of by the previous questions. So I'll defer my time to others.
Thank you. The next question is from Diantha McKeel.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chuck. This is great. I just have a quick question. I found when we were working on the HDAP panel for the hydraulic intersection, as well as the grade separated interchange at Rio, that the simulations that VDOT produced really helped in understanding how those intersections could or would work. And I was just wondering if you all have any simulations around this particular, this cut at this location.
For this particular location, we didn't develop a simulation. We have for other locations, and like you said, down there, we didn't. I mean, we did for the hydraulic stuff. For the, if this project is selected for funding and we go to public hearing, we can update that and provide a simulation so people can actually see how it's going to work in the future. The only thing we have on our website, the state website, there is a, under the innovation intersections, they do have a generic simulation that shows how it works. It's not exactly the same as ours because it doesn't show signalized intersections at the U-turn bays where ours are going to be signalized. But that's available if people want to go out to look at it. We also put together a presentation for the county that's available. I don't know if it's on the website that you have, Lucinda, or not. That has that link to it. It also has area of frequently asked questions and gives a lot of statistical data about this type of intersection. And it also gives a matrix of the different comparisons of this intersection over time. If it's nothing's done, what's going to happen in the future?
Thank you. I do think those simulations really helped understand. So as we move forward, if this is selected, I'll look forward to seeing a simulation and we can take a look at it. Thank you.
We can put that together for you at the public hearing.
Great. Thank you.
I put in the chat box a link to the RCUT presentation that you had sent us quite a while ago, Chuck. So that's in the chat box. The attendees can look there. The next question is from B. Lepesto Kirtley.
Yeah, B. Lepesto Kirtley. I'm a supervisor from the Rivanna district, and I also put up a video link. So it's not exactly the one we have, but it is a video link. And and thank you, Chuck, also for your presentation. I wanted to know if prior, I'm a big fan of cameras and fines, and I'm wondering if prior to this being done, if it's going to be done, or even if it isn't being done, whether or not we could look into putting rumble strips, flashing lights. I know you said their effectiveness wears off, but cameras where you get fined for speeding do not, those seem to stay with people, and people seem to really adhere to that. So if large signs will put up saying cameras in use, and then there's flashing lights saying the light up ahead is red, so that people know that going forward they have to stop, that they can't run the red light, they have to stop. Just throwing that out. But like I said, I'm going to be asking to see whether or not we can put up more cameras and get enforcement that way so people don't get injured or killed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we continue to have a growing number of crashes, we'll probably look at some interim steps between now and when the project's built. to try to alert people of the intersection until we can get the improvements made.
Thanks. The next question is from Crystal.
Hi, yes, thank you for this discussion. This intersection is the first crossing going south after exiting Greene County and then entering into Albemarle County. So I would support what the last speaker said about just having some type of flashing light similar to what's on the northbound side of at the Boulder Road intersection. That seems to work really effectively. And my question is, in your accident statistics, are the majority of the accidents going south coming from Greene County into Albemarle, or are they mostly northbound?
I think it's a pretty even split. Actually, I think the northbound's a little bit higher because the volume in the PM's a little bit greater. I don't have that statistic right here in front of me, so I can't tell you for sure. But it's pretty even northbound and southbound.
Thank you, Chuck. The next question is from Jay Chapman.
Hi, yes. Thank you for letting me talk for a second. So I have a couple questions. So I also do support like adding rumble strips or the flashing lights. I think that would also help with that because we have seen many cars run red lights. Now, my question is, can you tell me exactly where the U-turn is going to be on 29 South? And the reason I'm asking this is because, as Mark had said, you know, they added, kind of raised up that hill to kind of lower it out. And the strip between Burnley Station and the entrance to where the Dunkin' Donuts is, that is not a straight stretch. It's not flat. So that would have to have a lot of work done to it, to me, in order to be safe, because it's kind of dangerous right there making a U-turn right at the Dunkin' because there's that big hill. So how are we going to make it safer by making a U-turn right there where you have the rolling hills and the gullies? How is that going to work?
You know where the Albemarle County sign is?
Yes.
This turnaround is before you get to that sign. I mean, if you're going northbound, it's about 900 feet north of the intersection. So it's about 200 to 300 feet south of the Albemarle County sign.
So it's pretty hilly through there. So how is that gonna, to me, it's...
This portion is not, this section isn't hilly. It's a straight upgrade. And then it goes back up, but you're not in that hilly portion that I know exactly what you're talking about, but we're not that far north.
So you're talking, right, there's like a little antique store. Is that about where it's gonna be?
No, there's not anything here. This is just barren ground. It's north of the Albemarle County sign. I mean, south of the Albemarle County sign. So if you come from Greene County southbound, you're going to go past that big giant Albemarle County sign, and it's about 300 more feet, and then that's where the U-turn bay is going to be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So we have quite a few questions in the chat box and about 2 minutes left. I kind of went through, some of them were answered, and I'm summarizing, kind of combining some into some questions. So Chuck, people seem to be concerned about the U-turn queue, and they would like to know, like, how many cars does it take to signal the light to go? Like, if you have one car in there, do they have to wait until more cars come before they get a green light? And also, if they're in the U-turn queue and no other cars are coming, would they be able to merge into the traffic when there isn't any traffic and just go ahead without a green light?
So to the second question, you can't make a left turn on red, so no. To the first question, we'll put detectors out there. We usually have one at the stop bar and then a backup queue detector. I'm not sure exactly what we were planning for this, and that's something that we'll be evaluating during the design process. But we definitely wanted to not affect queuing out into the main line. So we will have both. So you're not going to have to pull up there and wait necessarily more than what you would normally have to wait. And we won't let you back out into 29. So hopefully that answers that question. So yes, we will have vehicle detection available at that signal.
Thank you. And then also there were some questions asking if there was like a full study or report on the analysis. I don't know, Chuck, if you can make something like that available, we can put it on the website for people later.
Yes, we have the original study that Kittleson did for last round. This round, I think we were just updating it, so it's not the full-blown study. So, but we can have both those available. The existing material is out there as part of their previous application. And like I said, with this application, we'll be providing it to the PDC so they can actually include it with the Smart Scale application.
Thank you. So Tom Farrell's going to get the last word. And this question is, the Lowe's in Greene County, you can make a left turn on a flashing yellow. And he's asking if this could be done at this intersection as well.
I don't know. Flashing yellows is a recent thing that we've started using throughout the district and the state. There's some good success with it, but I know about them and I know how they operate. I don't know all the details, and I'd have to defer to our traffic engineering section to make that determination at these locations, possibly.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. It's 5 o'clock. We're going to end the meeting now. If you have further questions or comments, I'm going to put an email address in the chat box, and you can send your comments to the staff at TJPDC and also at Albemarle County. So there's Sandy Shackelford at TJPDC, and her email address is in the chat feature. And Kevin McDermott, who's the principal planner at Transportation at Albemarle County, and his email address is in there as well. I really want to thank everybody for coming, and especially thanks to Chuck for helping us design this plan and then answer all of our questions through several webinars that he's been on for us. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Appreciate it.